Go.
Welcome to our Poetry Slam at the Uniting Church, and we have David, and we've got John, we've got Bill. I'm Bill, and it's a pleasure to be here talking and leaning on a very convenient pulpit with a cross in front of me to keep me honest. And three of us have got poems, and I'll invite, maybe if I could, David to be the first person to give us a view. And David's a poet. He's young, enthusiastic, lovable. What else is he? And writes very good poetry.
Thanks very much, Bill. Thank you. Okay, I've taken a leaf out of John's book, Sledge's book, and Sledge has got the remarkable ability to sketch out a poem while everyone is kind of presenting, which I think is pretty cool. So I've started writing down a lot of what I read and writing it a lot more prolifically. And here's one I've written on the 27th of May called Each of Us. And the idea is that each person's life is basically a divine painting in progress, a kind of celestial work of art that everyone's looking down and just kind of smiling and what's going to happen next. So it's called Each of Us. Each of us an unfinished painting, God's handiwork and daubs of colour. An unfolding story, rough, evolving, resolving. From the dark of earth to the brighter heavens. That unseen thread of love, scandalous in its effortless serendipity, omnipotent, loving, adorable, gentle and good. I've got a poem I wrote this morning. Actually, I've got another one I wrote a few days ago called Never Look Back, and this is a poem that I'm working on for the cafe where I work. I think it's their first anniversary, and I'm part of the team there, and they've been great to me. I saw, while walking to a meeting early one morning a few weeks ago, a broken rear view wing mirror from a car lying on the shoulder of the road on Northbourne Avenue, and I thought it was a great metaphor for a poem that I wanted to write called Never Look Back. And in fact, I got the idea for the name Never Look Back, I think, from seeing this wing mirror, and it seemed perfect, like take the wing mirrors off my life and just keep going forwards. So it was kind of cute, now I'm close to living in the moment, closer than I ever have been, and I have a lot of people to thank for that, so this is still a work in progress. Never look back. It's been a while now, and mostly the resentment is gone. A lot of good memories, a lot of good people. I look back at my old life, my old friends, Melbourne and everything. That meant so much. I finally cut it loose, the flotsam and the jetsam. So that's still a work in progress. And it's just a few quotes that I've met so many amazing people, and some of the quotes that I've said have just either made my hair stand on end in a good way, or have just been, for someone like myself, I smoked way too much grass when I was a kid, and my memory is pretty shot. But some of the things people have said to me have been so beautiful, you just can't forget them. One of them is from a homeless guy, John, that I know from Civic, and he said to me, "You don't tell the world, Dave, what you want to do, the world tells you," which I thought was pretty appropriate. What else? I was writing a lot of chalk on the pavement for a while, and one of the best line I came up with was just 4 words, and it's "in all this love." So I kind of resolved everything that I care about to basically be love, and probably just one last. I've been thinking a lot about angels and kind of stuff like that, and I kind of feel that at a few points I've seen, I've seen love in its human form, and for me that's quite often comes in the form of a beautiful girl and a beautiful woman. And the first time I really recognised this was probably fairly recently, 1 or 2 years ago. But in retrospect, there was a girl I kind of had a crush on, which I have got over and moved on, but I still think about her as a female archetype, as you know, everything that I want in my next relationship with a girl, with a woman. And so this is about that angel and that gentle vision on a cool winter morning of her hair falling in golden tumbles, an easy, effortless beauty, intoxicating and breathless, all sweet and clear. I then did hear as she spoke of me, knowing that I was there, articulate and delicate as only love demands. Her voice cut deep and clean and pure and true, that through time and space I long to taste her kiss, to quench the fire of love and miss. That's all I've got. So.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much, David. Excellent. And it creates a theme for the, and we'll maybe continue on that theme of love, of what was the theme what did you write down there?
Soul poetry.
Soul poetry, yeah, soul poetry. I think it's a very good phrase because the soul is, in theology and even in poetry and maybe in the real world, is the epitome, or should be the epitome of love. It could, of course, be the epitome of horror if you take it the other way. I mean, some people's souls are rather dark, but underneath there's always the saving grace of whatever it is. Some people call it Christianity, I suppose Buddhism's another word, some people call it humanism, but it's there, and it does rescue us from the pits of darkness. Well, I've written 3 poems about people who are, in a sense, guardian angels and bus drivers. One of them was pretty, I suppose, inadequate as a bus driver, put it mildly, not yet properly trained. Another was just perfect, well, I won't say perfect, nobody's perfect, but he got me into Civic one morning so well, I had to write about that. And the third is pretty much like all of us here, like John, like David, like me, Bill, in this this session where we're looking at soul poetry. And he got the final say, because I think most people in the world are neither angels nor devils, they're between. I don't think anybody, we're not in this world necessarily in hell a lot of the time, or indeed in heaven. These are fairly short moments, thank goodness, for most of us. Most of us live a life of, well, somebody once said quiet desperation. I suppose others could say quiet searching. And, well, we do our best. Okay, well, look, I'll start with the first of the action poems. It's called A Bus in Action, and it was written last week sometimes. And I was provoked into doing it by the bumpy buses that Canberra has and the roads and all the rest of it. And the first one's a rather negative description of a bus driver who seems to bump a lot. It's not his fault, it's the roads, and he's doing his best. New trained and very nervous, and also rather jumpy. Can our new driver cope with roads so obviously clunky? The Red Hill route weaves tortures in bends and dips and rises. The action bus is old and rolls on in a Red Hill Narnica crisis. The second stage to Civic was a teeny wee bit better. I even read the Canberra Times and made out every letter. Apart from one almighty lurch or a bulbous lump, our driver and his fractious bus his cargo did safe dump. It got us there. Just. I was getting more and more impatient as one does, and irritated, because when you're bumping around in a bus, it's nothing worse. If you're by yourself, it's worse. If you're talking to people, it's a bit better because you've got other distractions. Or if you've got a beautiful woman who is by you, or anybody who's conversationally adept, it's rather nice. You don't worry about those little things. When you're a single old fellow like me, you're very conscious of all those little things. And the Canberra Times is there, and the Canberra Times isn't like the Bible. It's not full of a lot of wisdom, but it's a book. So Second one's called Bus Action Man. Now this is a young fellow, full of enthusiasm, great, well-trained driver who gets on with the bloody job. And I like people who do that. I like people who manage. And he did. So it's called Bus Action Man. A foggy Sunday bus on time and driven with panache. Our pilot style says, hang on all for your sweet life. The bus sails o'er red hill bumps, fog pushed fast aside, driven by an eagle man with bird-like focused face. 10 minutes ahead, we get to base with neither pain nor strife. Best trip of the week, think I, and thank him for the ride. It's good. That's another one. And third one sort of brings the good and the bad together in a bloke who's just an ordinary fellow who does his best. Most of them are fellas. There's not too many women drivers. There were a few some years ago, and they were good. And it's a pity there aren't more of them. But they do seem to favour the blokes for some reason. This is called In Praise of Action. Now, I don't often praise Action for anything, and I'm not praising the company because they do run a rather convoluted service. It's not very good. But the people who do their best, I have a lot of time for. And this one's a bloke in the middle who does a good job. Knows he does a good job. Doesn't worry over much. Doesn't fuss too much. Very even-tempered fellow, which is probably the sort of things bus drivers should have, all those qualities. And here's one sort of tying them all up. A few are slow and fussy and sometimes drive wrong ways. Some are neat, don't miss a beat, but tend to talk too clipped. Others drive smart with grace and art, but then get desk promotion. A red-faced man who liked a dram left driving, sacked for such libation. My best driver is alert, kind, careful, and for better things high-tipped. As bus round o'er 40 years I need action and bend, oh gee, what am I saying here? As bus bound over 40 years, I need action and bend a bow in parade. So good on you, Action. We'll get there in the end. And I think John's got some poems. Yeah?
Got one.
Soul poems? Yeah, come up and share it with us.
Well, I got here this morning and asked Bill what to write about, as I usually write my poems when I get here. And he said soul poetry. So this is called soul poetry. It's in motion. It's from the heart, from the bottom of the soul. Soul poetry. It moves, it makes, it climbs. You to feel. Soul poetry. Bringing good souls together, sorting out in your mind. Looking, finding, being together. Soul sorting. Good from the bad, dark from the light. Soul poetry. Carry on the fight.
Terrific. Sums it up beautifully.
And that's about it. I'll go and write another one, eh?
Yeah, just do that, and David and I'll just chat a little bit while you're doing
Well,
that.
what's another? Give me another thing.
Give us another thing. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, soul is a good enough one for today, I'd say.
So I'll do
But
something
another
else
thing
about
would be,
another.
what about the
soul.
soulless, the people who you don't think have got
Soulless.
soul,
Okay.
people who are rather nasty.
Soul.
Soullessness of life, even to some extent, because it is. I mean, it's not all beauty. Poetry can make it that, even if it writes about things that aren't so beautiful. But I don't know, David. I mean, your poems are very, very heartfelt, which I like. Mine are very observational and a bit clinical. John's is very much direct. I'd say your poems seem to me to be very much the in the best sense, written at the last minute, because that's how poetry should be written. I mean, when you think about it, written quickly, written without too much agonising, or you never get anything done.
Yeah.
Or written, as you write them, David, written in parts. I mean, you start and you embroider and you get the more complicated. Or William takes a long time to do his, but they are, as works of art, I think the best of all of the poetry that we have here for this group. He's really very, very smart, and he's got the feel and he's got the panache to do it. But the whole question of soul, or indeed soullessness, is a good idea. But you might like to just talk a little bit about yours, because your poetry is largely in process, I would say, by the moment.
I feel sort of a bit unqualified to talk, but I do quite enjoy a good argument in the true sense of the word that we're looking at an important issue and talking about it, because that's what I think living is. I spent a majority of my life listening and doing what other people told me to do. Now I kind of feel that I'm finally, a childish man, but a man finally at the age of 30.
Childlike.
Childlike, yeah. But I'm really intrigued by the idea of the soul, and I'd like to think that all people, are inherently good, but certain things happen to them and tar them with a brush, and so their soul might get kind of a bit dirty, but through life's things happening to them during the course of their life. But I don't know. Do you feel that most people?
Yeah, I do. I do, particularly in this city. I've never met in Canberra yet a really evil person. I don't think I met anybody in Melbourne like that. I've occasionally, when I was going to school, the Mouse Brothers, one brother, very conflicted, seemed to me to be, if not evil, at least going along that road. But no, I think most people rise to the occasion, do their best, and are essentially lovable.
Yeah.
But there are people who irritate. That happens. There are people who, in politics particularly, make me very impatient, like Julia Gillard. I wonder what she's up to half the time. And of all the politicians, she's probably the worst I've ever felt about. Even Mr. Menzies and all his platitudes. He seemed to be essentially a good man in his own way, a very conservative man, but quite good. People like Jim Cairns, of course, great fire in their belly. But no, I would find it very hard to say that I've met a really bad or evil person. It's over a life going back 70 plus years. It's very hard. I mean, there are flashes of it. I mean, you can meet some people who you reel away from because they have a quality that's. Yeah. But you don't want to engage with them, and you don't. Maybe I should.
And the kind of, I'm not sure if it's the correct word, but platitude, or the common kind of cliche of the windows to the eyes, windows to the soul.
Yep.
What are your thoughts about that?
I think it's a great one. I think the eyes do tell a heck of a lot about a person. In fact, if you look in a person in the eye, you can often get a lot of that feeling.
Yeah.
And if you really get on with the person, you generally do a lot of eye contact.
Yeah.
As we do, because we do get on.
Yeah.
Although our poetry is very different, we come from different backgrounds. Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
It's a lovely way of doing it. It's almost biblical, isn't it? But it isn't, is it?
I'm not sure. It might be. I'll look it up. But I always now, I'm a little bit, still a little bit fearful. I think, going through my recent kind of breakdown, fall from grace, whatever. But now, sort of coming back to living life, I generally do look quite carefully at someone's eyes because I think it says so much about who they are, even the kind of more marked, dramatic kind of qualities that the eyes have, squinting, or whether or not they're tired, perhaps something.
People who don't look at you.
People who don't.
It's sort of a bit furtive.
Yeah, in some cultures, in Polynesian culture, for someone to look down is actually a mark of respect.
Yeah.
I always remembered at school they told us that. So it can be a cultural thing, but I do see, there's a lot, I think, to be kind of.
There's a lot to be learned from that. And again, if that person is a little shifty or perhaps a little, they have problems of their own, they're not wanting
Yeah.
to engage, they may be a little bit fearful of you or what you're saying, or
Yeah.
maybe you're not provoking them necessarily if we're on, as we are,
Yeah.
on good terms.
Yeah.
If you're having an argument with people, then if
Yeah.
you're shooting arrows at
Yeah.
from your eye, and that does happen now and then when you lose the cool,
Yeah.
as I've done on many occasions, and you really feel quite furious, and you end up by flouncing off.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't want any conflict.
Yeah.
It's a sort of common sort of thing, and people have done it on me occasionally, and I didn't want to irritate them. Something I said obviously gets them
Yeah.
annoyed, something maybe social or political or whatever.
Yeah, I think in kind of pursuing the truth, which should for everyone be a priority. You know, we can be sort of, some people can be more diplomatic and there's some people can be in an effort to be honest, be too abrasive. It can end up being quite sort of,
Can be quite nasty.
But
Yeah.
but everyone's got strengths and weaknesses.
And the eye, of course, helps that process going.
Yeah.
But your poetry in process seems to me to be perhaps a long-term project.
Yeah, I'm actually going to, my new friend of mine, Josh, who's a social worker, who's helping me with a few different things, has suggested I publish a little zine, which
That's a good idea.
I'm really kind of looking forward to.
It's where John can help. You know, you're into
Yeah.
zines a bit, John.
Designs.
Yeah,
Designs.
designs and just publishing a little A5 thing.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't really anything published. I've got stuff to be published, but I just
Put it on.
Yeah,
Put it up.
don't know how to go about getting it published.
well, we could
Well, we
probably
could help.
do that.
I mean, the
yeah.
printed publication scene is one that I'm involved in. If I just-
Well, because I've actually got something at home.
Yeah.
A book
Bring
that
it
I
in.
wrote many years ago with pictures and everything.
we could criticise it. I mean, one of our sessions could be a session of criticising
I'll
in a group
have to.
the
So I
poetry.
actually did it all, on the computer and that, but then I lost it.
Mm.
So I must have printed off some things of it, and then I found it at home and kind of put it together.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Putting it together is
Yeah.
and you sort of do that, and maybe you've got something you could tell us about now, if you like. Got it all together, your
I've
second
got another
poem?
time.
Good.
This one is called Soulless. People from the dark side, people without a heart, soulless, taking you for a ride, playing the part, soulless. Helter skelter, got no soul, killing fields, Manson-like, soulless, blood-curdling screams, chaotic in your mind's eye, violence, ultra-violence grind, soulless, look, what do you find? Soulless, people without the light.
Mm. Good, that's very good.
That's pretty awesome.
And yeah, the message is there, and you mustn't ignore it, and it could go into a song. I mean, you've got the beat
Yeah,
there.
well, I just wrote a song.
You've written the song as you do, because I think being an instrumentalist,
Yeah.
that's a good thing. But dare I say it, it can be a soullessness of the mind, and often it's something I'm not very familiar with, because I've never taken mind expanding or indeed contracting substances, so I've never really, because this is another world that I think you can see things like this, which I've never had the pleasure or indeed the pain of doing. I think both of you have probably done that, and you've
Oh, a
entered into
little bit.
these worlds. No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'd say it's very good, but it's a different sort of reality than the sort of reality here in a re-established church with the Bible in front of me and all the rest of it. Do you reckon, David, or what?
Yeah, I was just thinking about Sledge and his poem. It's pretty awesome.
Mm.
Takes a lot of courage. You know, you must have seen some stuff. Because
Yeah, I've been to the dark side, worship
You have.
Satan.
You've lived it, John.
Yeah,
Let's be honest
yeah,
about
I've
it.
been there.
You've been to places neither I think David and I have been to, but that to some extent makes your words very strong and fairly uncompromising in a way. I think that, which is a good thing. But I think music can sort of add to them. I mean, it has for a lot of the music that you've got. So you've got the poetry, but you've got the music, which I'm just unfamiliar with. So I go to the classics and into the.
Well,
into the
once
stuff.
I've got my new Venom synthesizer, I'll bring it in.
Is it called Venom?
M-Audio Venom.
Venom. That's an interesting. It means poison. Yeah.
Well, and as soon as I seen the name and I pushed one key on it, and a techno beat hit in, I fell in love. And I look at this.
Well, this is what happens, isn't it? Because instruments and technology can give you a burst of enthusiasm, which is something I'm not familiar with. It's all in the mind with me, in a sort of way, but my mind's rather childlike, I suppose you could call it, childish in some ways even. But it's what poetry's all about, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
And to publish it's important, to get it out.
Because I've actually entered into a battle of the bands.
Oh, yeah, that's going. When's the battle going to be?
Well, it starts at the end of this month and goes
Whereabouts?
to August in America.
You're going over to America?
Well, I've entered into it to play in Salt Lake City.
So you're going to go over to the Northern City?
I'll have to get a passport, I suppose.
You'll have
I
to get a
thought about
passport.
that when I
Yeah.
entered into it.
You have to get a clearance, won't you?
Yeah, but I'll see what happens.
See what happens indeed. Oh, that'll be an interesting experience.
It's the Ernie Ball Vans Warp Tour.
Okay.
I've entered into that. So
Good on
it's all-
you.
it's
Well,
all
you
up
might be
online.
famous by the end of next month. Is it next month?
Well, I haven't even got my Venom yet, I need that.
Yeah.
But when I play music and do my poetry and that, I'm more the type of person that can't sit down and work out what it is. I'll just get up there
You
and
do
I
it.
perform.
Do it.
I get up and make it up on the spot.
Yeah.
And that'll be more awesome than
Yeah.
If you've got the
learning how to
strength
do it,
to
because I don't have the mental capacity to do that.
But you've got the strength.
I just got to sit there and
You do it.
do it.
You do it. And I
Just
think
do
that's admirable if you can manage it.
Just do it.
Getting a bit older, I'm sort of doing much more poetry just on impulse.
Yeah.
Driving in a bus and getting bumped around provokes me to write. I'm about one bus driver, that's a bit unfair, so I'll do another one. Good, very good, and another one is sort of in the middle. So it's how you are and your personality, and I suppose your age has got a bit to do with it. And experiences, as David said, if you've got a strong love interest that's very continuous, because love doesn't go away, does it? It's sort of there once you've got somebody you really love.
Yeah, no, I that's kind of developed into my idea of friendship and
Yeah.
archetype, and so I'm pretty happy that that's resolved. But I read a great quote the other day that it's you shouldn't sit down to write, and it kind of applies to me. I've seen a lot of weird things and unusual things that made me think, and
Just right in the spirit of the moment.
yeah, and it's been amazing with my life over the last 3 years, but I haven't really lived life, and I read this thing on the community, like where they hand out the citizens' advice information, and it said, shouldn't sit down to write, and it applies to me, if you haven't stood up to live, and I kind of thought, well, it's true, because I haven't really lived a full life.
You have to make that decision. If you feel that, I think go along with it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's because nobody else can tell you one way or the other. John, on the other hand, has had experiences I've never had, and
Only a couple.
well, no, I mean that, and wouldn't want to have, but I've had lots of varied experiences, but I wouldn't say I've sort of scaled the heights or plumbed the depths. I think you two possibly have
Yeah,
more
I've scaled the heights and I've
plumbed the depths.
plumbed the depths.
Yeah,
And then
and I
climbed
think,
back up again.
yeah, David, I think you have too.
Yeah.
William certainly has. I get the sense of the four of us who regularly come here. It's always good to have William because he seems to radiate some sort of, I wouldn't call it exactly light, but a sort of laser beam that cuts through a lot of what we talk about. And he's got that ability, and it's there. But he's extraordinarily strong. Of all of us, I'd say he's the strongest of the four, and a bit scary. A bit scary.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any. How do you feel William? Let's talk about
I
him
have a
in his
lot
absence.
of time for William because he introduced me to community radio, which is now the best thing in my life.
Good.
And, I'm so grateful. And yeah, he's always got something really interesting and intelligent to say, and he won't, you know, he can he can be a little bit scary, but generally he's so engaging that it just, you know, I just want to talk to him. I think he's probably my favourite person in Canberra.
Interesting. Do you think he's a prophet?
I do see him as, yeah, I do actually.
It's interesting because I get that feeling that when he was up here giving his talk last week, his poem last week, but we couldn't record it, that he was a prophet, somebody who was talking. But on the other hand, I reel away a bit because some of the things he says are very like the prophet Jeremiah. You know, they're preaching something that's not going to be so good.
Yeah.
John, you do it a bit, but I think you've got you don't give the whole horror. Whereas William, I get the sense that he's
I give a bit of both. The light and
maybe
the darkness.
yeah.
Because I'm the one who trying to help bring people back from the dark.
Exactly. So you have a missionary purpose, which is probably, that says many things. I suppose I have too, in a secular sense. I mean, I'd like more people to come to this group and engage and talk as we're doing, because I think these discussions are very interesting, informative, and useful for
Educational.
Yeah, I think they need to be over 16, or even over 20. I don't know. I don't want to put a cap on it, but I'm sure if there are anybody who would like. I'm sorry, Michael can't come. Michael has a sort of vision. He's a bit like William, only scattered.
Scared of the camera.
He's scattered. He's. What do you feel about our friend?
William, someone said to me once, you can learn something off everyone. It's like a family, part of the family. He's a photographer. And when he said it, I kind of thought, well, I'm not so sure about that. But now I'm pretty convinced that everyone, doesn't matter where they are fitting into the social system or what they do for a job, you know, all that stuff doesn't matter. It's what they're saying and it's what it means relevant to what your kind of approach to life.
Yeah,
So
what do you think of what he says? Do you have an honest opinion? When he says it, because he's, this is, we're talking about Michael, of course.
Sometimes Michael can be a little bit fearful, but then so can I be. So I kind of have empathy for that because he can be a bit fearful and I can be quite fearful. And so that's what I pick up.
I think you're very different, in my opinion. I don't know what John thinks of that, but I don't get that from you. But from Michael, I get like you get. I get intensely irritated.
Yeah, I think that Michael should think more of himself. He doesn't think well enough of himself. He thinks that he's down here.
Yeah, that's true.
Thinks that he's right on the bottom, whereas that's only because he's put himself on the bottom.
He puts himself
He doesn't
consciously.
try and put himself off the bottom.
Absolutely.
He tries to stay down there.
What do you think about that?
But then at the same time, from what I've got from this, he tries to bring everyone else down there with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what gets me.
It's like he can't handle seeing everyone else when they're trying to get up out of it. He's just trying to pull them back down with him.
Yeah.
Unconsciously, I think.
Yeah, he doesn't realise he's doing it, but it's just.
But he won't be a poet. Now this is interesting.
So he's got the brains to be a poet.
He's got the brains,
to
but
be a
he
good
won't
poet.
do it. Although recently he says. What do you think about that?
Look, I can be. I don't know if it's right to talk about him without him being here.
He's not here, so sorry, Michael.
But probably, I just have a lot of. I can see his pain. You know, it's pretty apparent,
true.
and I think more than critiquing his personality, it's probably more important that we help him. Only because
it's true.
It's kind of easy to. Because he's so vulnerable and he cares, that's why he's here. So I have a lot of time for him and I feel for him because I've been where he is.
You could talk to him, try and get him back into the group, because I think John and I are probably
Yeah, well, it's set
We're
up
not
the
in
week when
that
I
league.
kind of scared him a bit, I think.
I think you did, but
Well,
then
he
again,
just pushed the wrong button.
I've screamed at him, so you're not the only one who did. He got some bloody awful poem and tried to make out that it was good, it was soulless.
But I wasn't
and I
threatening him
screamed
or
at him.
anything, I was just telling
Of course
him
you
how
would.
it was.
But he irritates to such
Yeah.
an extent that you do
I was just
occasionally.
explaining to him, might have been in that
Very hard to explain when he doesn't
intimidating way that I
want to hear
do,
you.
but
Yeah, well, some people, I think it's kind of life is really difficult for a sensitive person like Michael, I think, and what you know, even me, like I'm quite sensitive, but even me, you know, when you know I have something to do, I can be kind of pretty, you know, I can do
Dismissive,
things that I look back at and think, why did I do that? That person must have thought I was an arsehole.
yeah.
But Michael's even more sensitive, and I think when he steps up to do something, like he comes into poetry, and it must be pretty terrifying, you know. And so
Yeah,
it's kind
it
of
is.
relative to his perception, and he's so sensitive that it's such an effort to get here. I think that everything in addition just is a burden. So we should make it. We should help him take some of that burden off and encourage him.
We should listen to him, in other words, I think. What
Yeah,
he's trying to say.
and boy,
If he wants to say it.
yeah,
Irritating though it may be, but I think if he must be conscious of the fact that he's talking with a group, that it's not just him.
yeah.
And he surely must realise that. And I think he does.
I didn't realise that communication is a two-way thing. The best thing I ever heard about communication is try and express, not impress. And for me, that was the most
True.
relevant, you know.
Well, keep working on him and good luck.
Yeah.
But I usually meet him after here at the Smith's bookshop, and I won't be today because of other commitments.
Who actually been to it?
Yeah,
Well, it's something that we can think about, but it's an hour after we finish here, so it's fairly close to that. Why we did it was June Foster, poet, you met there, I think, sometime back.
Yeah.
Lovely woman who's a great peacemaker, terrific person who just makes the right. And I'll try and ring her and say hello to her and maybe get her back if she wants to come back to Smith's, because she's getting older and she's a bit frail, but her personality is lovely, and it's just the sort of soul that we want.
Yeah. So Smith's bookshop, is that like a little poetry reading as well?
Well, we sit outside and just rant, basically.
Awesome.
There are 3 or 4 of us, and try and engage people. At least I do.
Wonderful.
If they want to sit down or listen or whatever. And June and Michael, myself, and it used to be a young Christian woman who'd come and sort of recite fairly esoteric Christian poetry. But now it's Michael and me.
Yeah.
And I find Michael very useful as a sounding board.
Yeah.
I recite my poetry, ask him what he thinks, he gives me one, and he's very good as a critic.
He's good. Yeah.
He's excellent as a critic. He can look into it, and that sometimes might make people feel a bit uncomfortable, but we sort of work it out. I mean, he did a good rehab job on one of my poems that I'm very grateful to. So I suppose we can work it out as it goes along. Do you think, John?
I'm
Keep
not really
going.
thinking.
How are we going?
38.
Is it visible and audible, hey?
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Good on you.
That would be about it, eh? Yeah, that was
Yes,
good.
yes.
Oh, that's mine. I forgot it was even there.
No, I was trying to get rid of mine.
Alright.
So there we have it, all the images and things, and we'll